3D Scrat from Ice Age, acrylic nail art tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi everyone, so in today's video I am going to be making a three-dimensional Scrat, and it's a 2-nail design. So on the first nail it's Scrat reaching out to try to get his acorn, and on the second nail it's his acorn stuck into a huge sheet of glacial ice. Anyways, I hope you like this design. It's really fun, and if you're planning on going to the new Ice Age movie, I would definitely think about trying this out. And don't forget to click subscribe to see my future videos as well. So I'm going to begin by sculpting the nail for my Scrat. So I'm going to start with a gradient. So I'm going to take a bead of light blue, place it by the cuticle, push it up into the cuticle area, and then brush it down, and then add a bead of white to the tip, and then brush it up, just to create a very subtle light blue to white gradient. And then I'm going to be placing a bead of glitter over the nail. So this is a clear base with just white glitter flakes in it. This is just going to kind of add to that snowy effect. And then I'm going to add a layer of clear acrylic on top of that and encase the entire nail. So you want to make sure that those first two layers were nice and thin so that the entire nail doesn't get too bulky overall. And that's also where you're going to want to build your nail structure. So now I'm going to be filing my nail with a 180 grit file to smooth it out. And when you're doing this, make sure you don't file through that top layer of clear into that glitter layer, and then buff it with a 240 grit pad of buffer to remove any scratches so that your 3D art goes on nice and smoothly. So now I'm going to be sculpting my Scrat, and the color that I'm using in this beginning is sort of a beige gold tone. It's just a light brown color. It's the lightest brown color I had, and it, like I said, it is gold actually. It's Koopa's gold, but it's not like a metallic gold, if any of that makes a lick of sense. So we're going to sculpt his head, his neck, his body, and we're going to sculpt one back leg and one front leg along with his snout. And so I did his back leg down there, and so now I'm going to be working on his front leg. And when you're doing his front leg, make sure that you work in very wet acrylic, because to make these really nice thin lines that we're going for, if it's too thick, it's not going to have that effect. If it's too firm, the acrylic isn't going to be able to pull and stretch into that shape that we're going for. And so once you have his arm in place, I'm just going to touch up his back a little bit, and I'm going to add his ears with the same color. And then I'm going to add his eyes. So there's his first eye, and then I'm going to be adding his other eye on the other side that's a lot smaller because you don't see the entire thing with gold. And I'm also going to be adding his saber tooth. And once you have that in place, I'm just going to add a little bit of brown for his nose. And then going back with gold, I'm going to be adding his eyelids. So just take a very small bead and press it right in the middle of where you want his eyelid to be, and then pull it in either direction just so that it sort of stretches and gets tapered down at the edges so that you have an eyelid. And then with gray, I'm going to be sculpting his tail, and then add just a little bit of gray acrylic over his back and just sort of brush it on so it's not a really bright gray, but it's just sort of blended into his back. And then also do that same thing with white over his legs. And then a little bit on his cheek just to lighten up those areas. So now I'm going to be adding some white highlight. So I'm going to use full strength white on his eyes to highlight them, and then diluted white to highlight his ears, his snout, his eyelids, his arms, and then with a charcoal color I'm going to add some stripes on his back and on his tail, and also just define his legs a little bit. So I'm going to separate that back leg to make it look like it's 2 instead of 1, then do just some subtle outlining with that gray, differentiate between his upper and lower jaw, highlight his tooth, add brown in his eyes for the color, and then a black pupil. And then with black, I'm going to be doing the rest of my outlining. And I do definitely want to do some outlining on this guy so that he shows up really nice and easy to see. Otherwise, when you look at him, it's a little bit hard to tell where all of his shapes are, you know, eyelids, eyeballs, all that stuff. You want to make sure everything is outlined and nice and visible. And so after I got that done, I just went through and touched up anything that got messed up from the outlining. And now I'm applying some gel sealer in the background and curing that. And then I'm going to apply matte top coat over my Scrat. He is my favorite character for sure from the Ice Age franchise. Just going to throw that out there. I love Scrat. So then for the acorn, I'm just going to cover the entire nail with some of that light blue acrylic and just making sure that it's a relatively thin layer. For this is going to be our background, and then let this blue acrylic set completely. You don't want it to be any sort of mobile at all. You want it to be completely set, and then add a relatively thick layer of that glitter acrylic over the top. And then I'm going to be taking an X-Acto knife that I've dipped into clear acrylic, and I'm going to scrape off so that's got a nice clean edge at the bottom. And then I'm going to once again dip it into some clear acrylic just so it doesn't stick, and I'm going to be carving out the shapes of cracks. And you want all of this to be sort of coming out from the center, so just cut out your cracks. I know it's hard to see in the video, but I can see them, so you are able to see what you're doing. And then I'm going to add a layer of acrylic that's even thicker towards the tip and filling that in and leaving that nice edge. And then I'm going to go through and create more cracks. And when you're doing this, if you're doing this on yourself or on a client, make sure that you're very, very careful with this sharp knife so that you don't cut anyone or yourself. And then I'm going to be adding a very wet bead of some white into all of those cracks. I'm just going to push it into the cracks so that it goes into all those little dents that we made. And I'm going to gently file it off the surface so that the cracks are white and everything else around it is white. And this has an amazing cracked ice effect. It looks incredible with that glitter and then the white in there. It's, again, hard to see in the video really how perfect it looks. But that is the technique that I thought was, it just looks awesome. So now I'm going to be sculpting my acorn with that same goldish color for the bottom of the acorn and then brown for the top. And then I'm going to take a really tiny wet bead of that same brown and then add the little stem on the acorn. And then I'm going to add another bead of brown over the top. And then with my X-Acto knife once again, I'm going to be just poking little holes in it to give it that texture. The other thing you could do is you could use a pointed tweezer, which is what I would have done, but my tweezers was MIA for a moment. And I'm just going to differentiate between the two layers of ice with some diluted charcoal paint, blend it out, add a little gold highlight on my acorn, and then paint matte or glossy gel sealer in the background over that ice, and then cure it and add matte top coat over the acorn. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design. Please share any recreations with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I really love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!